Very good evening to everyone. We are yet again here with our webinar series, and today the topic of our webinar is statutory compliances, which a private limited company and an LLP should be doing, and what are the repercussions if they don't do it. And I have my colleague Manish with me. Very good evening, Manish, and welcome you for the webinar.
Yeah, hi Rahul. Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
And we are live on Facebook, we'll start with the webinar, and people who have questions, they can put it in the chat box, and after the webinar is done, we can attend to the questions. And people who are watching live on Facebook, they can type their questions on the comment box, and we'll be taking up at the end of the webinar. So I think we can get started. So Manish, we can get started.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So, topic for the day is like annual compliances for private limited companies and LLPs that are required to be done every year. So we start with the annual meetings and DPT3 and KYC filings. Uh, so basically, for companies, board meetings are required, and mandatorily 4 board meetings are required to be conducted in a financial year, and the duration between 2 board meetings cannot be more than 120 days. This is the first requirement that is required in a company. Then there is the annual general meeting, which is to be done annually. But for OPC, it is not mandatory. And the like points to be noted are here. The first AGM should be held within 9 months from the end of the first financial year. So suppose if any company has been incorporated in 1920, the first AGM should be conducted by 31st of December. That is 9 months from 31st of March. And for further AGMs, that is all subsequent AGMs after first AGM should be held within a period of 6 months from the end of the financial year. For the later on, the annual general meetings can be held after the end of the financial year, but within 6 months of the date. That is 30th of September. Within 30th of September, it has to be conducted. Then we have DPT3 filing, where all the information regarding loans received or advances received by a company or LLP in a financial year has to be reported. And this reporting has to be done after 3 months, within 3 months, in fact, of the end of the financial year, that is by 30th of June. So if we have received any kind of loan or any kind of advances from anyone in our company or LLP, so we have to report that within 30th June of the next financial year. And then we have mandatory filing of DIR KYC 3, that is director's KYC verification. So any kind of director or designated partner in LLP needs to file their KYC form, and the due date is 30th of September of the next financial year. So for 1920, the KYC has to be completed by 30th of September 2020. So next we move on to appointment of auditors. For private limited companies, the auditor has to be appointed within the 30 days of incorporation in the first board meeting. That is by filing form ADT1, and the appointment period has to be concluded within the next AGM. And in the next AGM, the auditor can be appointed for 5 years. And in any kind of failure of appointment of auditor in the first board meeting, there is an extension of 90 days where you can conduct a EGM and appoint a auditor who will hold your office till the conclusion of first AGM. That is from the first AGM uh, till the next AGM. It has to be like the auditor has to be appointed, and then for in the next AGM, the auditor can be appointed for 5 years. And if this compliance is not being met, so if the the one form is not filed within 30 days, then for the next 30 days the fees would be twice the of the fees or the government fees. And similarly, if it is filed within 60 days but more than 30 days, it will be of 4 times. And similarly of 60 to 90 days, it will be 6 times. 90 to 180 days, it would be 10 times. And for more than 180 days, the fees would be 12 times of the government fees. That is for the appointment of auditor. And then we have appointment of auditor in LLPs. So for LLPs, there is a criteria where if the LLP turnover does not exceed 40 lakhs in a financial year, or its partner's contribution does not exceed 25 lakhs, there is no requirement to appoint auditor. But Rule 24(8) says that if the criteria have been met, then the auditor has to be appointed within 30 days before the end of the financial year. That is, for financial year 1920, if your turnover has exceeded more than 40 lakhs, or the contribution of the partners is more than 25 lakhs, then the auditor has to be appointed by 1st of March 2020. And the appointment of auditor can be done by the designated partner, and it has to be done within 30 days of, before the end of the financial year, or to fill the vacancy of the auditor. Suppose if the auditor has resigned and in the next financial year there is a requirement of auditor, so that auditor has to be appointed for the financial year from the period the first auditor has resigned. That is the second last point, to fill the casual vacancy in the office of the auditor. And then we move on to the next compliance, annual compliance, which is mandatory. That is accounts and books maintenance. So as per Income Tax Act, the section 44AA of Income Tax Act says that all LLPs and companies are required to maintain proper books of accounts since the registration on accrual basis. For private limited companies, the accrual basis is mandatory, but however for LLPs, there is an option for maintaining the books of accounts on cash basis as well. And the books of accounts has to be maintained and kept at a registered office, and it has to be completed and finalized, so that the ROC filings can be completed with the within 6 months of the end of the financial year. For 1920, all the compliances, all the books, accounts, and maintenance has to be completed, and the ROC has to be reported within 6 months from the end of the financial year. And if the accounts maintenance is not being done, then the penalty is chargeable under section 271, which says such non-compliance penalty can exceed up to rupees 25,000. Then we move on to the next compliance, which is annual compliance, which is mandatory for all the companies and LLPs. That is income tax return filing. So for companies, the income tax return filing has to be the form is ITR 6. It has to be completed within 30 days, 6 months by 30th September. So for any financial year ending on 31st March, the income tax return has to be filed by 30th of September of the next financial year. And if there is a requirement of tax audit, then the tax audit return has to be filed before income tax return, and the same has to be submitted by 30th September itself. along with the IT return. But in case of any transfer pricing regulations, there is a limit where the tax audit report has to be filed within 30th September, but the IT return can be filed by 30th of November along with the Form 3CEB, that is for transfer pricing reporting, that has to be filed by 30th November. So in case of transfer pricing, we have to file the company's income tax return by 30th of November as well as the transfer pricing report. But in case of only tax audit, both tax audit and income tax return has to be submitted by 30th of September. But the tax audit report has to be filed before income tax return. So in the next part,
Manish,
we have is
in this year we have extensions because of the COVID-19
COVID.
situation.
Yeah.
So you can also tell the extended due dates.
Yeah, the current due dates that has been extended for companies are till 30th of November, and for tax audit returns, we have to report them by 31st of October. These are the current due dates for the companies, and there might be some extension further if we get some.
Even for the individuals, it is extended till 30th of November.
Yeah, right. So we move on to the next part. Yeah, income tax returns for LLPs. That is ITR 5. ITR 5 has to be filed within 4 months of the financial year end. That is by 31st of July of the after the end of the financial year. But there is a catch to it. That is, if the turnover of the financial year is within 40 lakhs, then this due date is applicable. But if the turnover exceeds 40 lakhs, but there is a but it is within 1 crore limit, then there is a requirement of statutory audit, which says that the extension of income tax return is there, which says that the income tax return can be filed by 30th of September. So if your LLP's turnover is within 40 lakhs, or your partner's contribution is less than 25 lakhs, then we can file the return by 31st of July. And if the turnover crosses 40 lakhs, there is a requirement of statutory audit, which says that the income tax return can be filed by 30th of September along with the statutory audit. And similar to the companies, if there is a requirement of tax audit, then a tax audit report has to be filed before filing the income tax return. That is to be filed by 30th of September. And similar to private limited companies, if there is a requirement of filing transfer pricing report, that is Form 3CEB, then we have to file the income tax. We can file the income tax return along with the 3CEB form, that is transfer pricing form, by 30th of November. But the tax audit has to be filed by 30th of September itself. And for the current financial year, that is 1920, due to COVID, it has also been extended till the 30th of November, the income tax return filing. But for the tax audit, it can be filed by 31st of October. And next we move on to audit for the private limited companies. So I'll read this out first, then I'll explain. The annual statutory audit is a complex procedure and could be a very taxing process because of the microanalysis and scrutiny of the financial records. However, if a company plans their audit well, it could be a part and parcel of the company's routine, and could help the companies improve both financially as well as operationally. Statutory basically means anything which comes under the regulations set by the government. And audit basically means inspection. Therefore, statutory audit basically means an inspection under the regulations set by the government authority. It is basically done to assess the financial position of the company. So for companies, there is a mandatory statutory audit requirement. All the companies have to get a statutory audit with the closure of their books and finalization of their books for any financial year. And the auditor has to be like a chartered accountant. It has to be like audited by a chartered accountant, and the auditor will give an audit report and assess financial statement to document it with the registrar. So this audited financials and the audit report has to be like reported to the registrar of the company. And this audit process is yeah, we move on to the next part then. Yeah, for audit in LLPs, as I have already discussed earlier, that if there is a like turnover of more than 40 lakhs or the contribution of the partners exceeds 25 lakhs, then only we have a requirement of audit in LLPs. So I'll read this part also. LLP is a way between company and partnership. It takes into account the benefit of both, that is less legal and regulatory formalities as compared to company, and not in case of the partnership. So like it is a way where we can say that the compliance part is comparatively on the lower side in terms of LLP, and that is because like of the limits that have been set over here. Like if there is no like if there is turnover less than 40 lakhs or the contribution is less than 25 lakhs, then there is no requirement of any statutory audit. But in case of these limits like matched up, so there is a requirement of appointment of auditor, that is a chartered accountant, and he shall be appointed, he or she shall be appointed in the like within 1st of March, as I've already mentioned in the earlier slide, of the financial year, before the end of the financial year. And if this requirement is not compiled with, the LLP can be charged maximum of 5 lakhs, but a minimum of 25,000 rupees. And the designated partners can also be charged penalty, which cannot be less than 10,000 and can exceed up to 5 lakh rupees. And if the like points are matched, that the turnover exceeds 40 lakhs and or the contribution of the partners exceeds 25 lakhs, then the like due date for filing of such returns, income tax returns, comes to 30th September, and there is a requirement of audit in LLPs. Then we move on to the next part, that is annual ROC filings for private limited companies. So as per the Companies Act 2013, we have two mandatory forms that has to be filed every year, and those have to be filed within 30 days and 60 days of the annual general meeting. I'll tell you what is the exact thing. So there is one form that is called AOC 4. So AOC 4 has to be filed within 30 days from the date of AGM, and it majorly contains all detailed statements about the assets, liabilities, incomes, and expenditure in the financial year. And the due date for this filing is the 30th of October of the financial year, of the succeeding financial year. So for 31st March 2019, we have to file this like AOC 4 within 30 days of the annual general meeting held, and the due date, maximum due date, is 30th of October. And similarly for Form 20 MGT 7, where it has to be filed within 60 days from the annual general meeting, and this basically contains shareholding details, number of shares issued during the year or redeemed, shareholding patterns, all those details regarding the shareholders. And the due date for filing of MGT 7 is 30th November of the succeeding financial year. So AOC 4 has to be filed by 30th of October, and MGT 7 has to be filed by 30th of November. And if these compliances are not, if these filings are not done within the due date, the like penalty for filing of like delayed filings can is rupees 100 per day. For every day, rupees 100 would be chargeable on like the form filing, along with the government fees. then we have ROC filings, annual ROC filings for LLPs. So similar to like private limited companies, there are like annual filings for LLPs also, and the two forms that are there is Form 11 and Form 8. So Form 11 has to be filed within 60 days of the end of the financial year. That is by 31st May, it has to be filed, and it majorly contains number of like the details about number of partners, the total contribution by the partners, and like if there is any body corporate who's like a partner in the LLP, the details about those, and it basically requires an attestation by the designated partner, but in certain cases there is a requirement of like professional like attestation as well, and the filing of forms can be done by like it has to be done by 31st May of the financial year or the succeeding financial year. And for Form 8, it has to be filed within 30 days from the end of the 6 months of the end of the financial year. That is like it has to be filed by 31st of October. So suppose like the form has to be filed by 31st of October, and it has to be attested by a CA, and it majorly contains like all the details about assets, liabilities, and income and expenditure details about like of the financial year. And if these forms are not also like if these forms are not compiled with, and there is a non-compliance, then there is also a penalty of rupees 100 per day on filing of this return of this form. So for form filing, if any form like Form 8 is filed after 31st of October, then 100 rupees per day would be chargeable on such forms. And similar to this, Form 11 is filed after 31st of May, then 100 rupees is chargeable on those forms as well, along with the government fee. And then we have two schemes that has been introduced by the government in March, around March 2020, which states that any kind of like default with regards to the ROC annual filings from a private limited company or LLP can be like completed with minimum penalty fee. So that scheme are one is for LLP, that is LLP settlement scheme 2020, which where if any Form 8 or Form 11 which have been pending for like last few years, can be filed with a minimum penalty rather than the computable charges, that is like per day 100 rupees that have been charged right now, that has been a liability. But in a scheme, they are saying that this form has to be filed, and then there is a relaxation for this LLP, so they can like give a minimum fee, the penalty fee, and they can file their returns, like file their forms. And similar to that, there is a company fresh start scheme where all the private limited companies whose like AOC 4 and NGT 7 are pending for the last few years can be filed with a minimum fees that has been introduced by the government in the scheme. And these schemes can be like availed as of now, and like the compliance can be completed if there is any pending. And the due date, like the last date for like availing this benefit is 30th of September 2020. So that's it, Rahul. We can now take the questions if there is any query.
Thank you, Manish, for the detailed presentation. So we already have few questions. We'll take it up first. So yeah, Archana is asking if a private limited company can maintain its books of accounts in soft copy and not keep printouts of it. So Archana, I think yeah, that is allowed. So the only thing is that it should be in such a format that it is retrievable, and whenever required by any of the government departments, be it from the Companies Act perspective or from the income tax perspective, it should be retrievable and printable so that it can be produced before the authorities in the required format. So yeah, soft copy computer maintained accounts are absolutely fine, and there is no requirement to print and keep everything. But yeah, people do it for at times for proper and better management. But if it's not done, but still it is in a retrievable format, it should be fine. But yeah, there are minimum limit on the number of years till when the books of accounts supporting the financial statements of the company and the supporting documents for the books of accounts should be maintained for close to 8 years by the as per the Companies Act, and close to 7 years including the current year as per the Income Tax Act. So any other question? Maybe you can put it in the box, or if you can raise the hand, we'll enable you to speak. If anyone wants to speak, just raise your hand and we'll enable you to speak to take it further. So, Ashish, we have enabled you to talk. You can ask your question. Ashish, I think you are on mute.
Hello.
Yeah, hi Ashish, please.
Hi. Sir, I don't know actually. My question is that can a partnership firm be a member of the company, sir? Hello.
Yeah, so partnership firms are not allowed to be members of the company.
Okay, sir. Because they are not a legal entity, no, sir?
Yes.
And is there any case law or something like that, or plain definition by reading the plain definition of member under Companies Act, we can refer to?
Yeah, we can refer to. I don't think this is something which is litigated. So partnership for pass-through entities where they don't have their legal standing at the end of the day, all assets, liabilities, and responsibilities, they move to the firm per se, and so they cannot represent as a member.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks. So we have a question from Abhijit. So as a startup private limited company, first year, the financial and legal compliance to be ensured. So I think, Abhijit, we covered the things which are required. So there is nothing specific to a first year company. So if you are a private limited company, even if you are a registered startup with the DIPB, the basic statutory requirements of maintenance of books of accounts, holding annual general meeting, doing the statutory filings with the registrar of companies, with the income tax department, all the things which we discussed in our slide, most of them are applicable. So there is no specific exemption on these basic compliances. So any other question? So I think Jugal is asking if we'll be sharing the PPT. So I don't think we'll be sending it over email, but we are live on Facebook. You can visit our page taxmantra.com, and the complete video is available over there. I think that's it. We don't have any further question. So I would like to thank everyone for joining in. So we have one question from Sulagna, and Sulagna is asking that what would be the penalty amount for CFSS? So can you move back to that slide, Manish? Is there any penalty in CFSS?
No, nothing has been specified as of yet. The filing is dependent on the number of years it has not been filed. So team members who are actually working on this file scheme.
So
They can help you out.
normal filing fee is what we have to pay and close the filings under the scheme. So the penalties have been waived off, but the normal filing fee as per the slab rate is what is available, and that will be charged.
Yeah.
So fine, I think thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you, Manish, for the detailed presentation. And we'll end here. You can join our upcoming webinars. So thank you everyone. Thanks and take care.
Thank you everyone.